month. I thought maybe a small gathering of few industries, academia, or experts from the field will be there. So let's go and have fruitful discussion in the summit. But I am surprised to see the kind of gathering here, really, and that too when people are now started afraiding for you see, so travel. Now this COVID cases has just already started. In fact, Delhi it's gone more than 10%. So the growth rate. But despite that, we all are here. So I am really thank you for organizing this summit. And to me, it's a great learning by the speakers sitting on dais, especially Sumantran ji, Mahesh Babu, and all. You have really championed. In fact, sir was saying to me that see the look, the kind of expert Pradeep was presenting. So it says absolutely it's for us to learn about it and make things policy for the government of India as well as TamilNadu government. I just want to say something. Now I have written some speech to tell, but most of the points which was I thought I will cover is already covered, so I will skip this. I am not going into all this. I will speak from my own belief and the system, what I am thinking about EV. Some time back I was discussing with one such group, and I have my concern about EV. It should not so happen that this technology comes and very soon may be overtaken by some other disruptive technology, for example, hydrogen fuel. Okay. I think I must mention one point. This technology development board has supported the first EV project, Reva vehicle in year 2000, if I am not wrong, 2000. You see, 20 years back, now people are talking about EVs and all. Technology Development Board understood the utility of electric vehicle, not today, 20 years back, the first project we supported. Probably that time, this ecosystem, as someone.
What is this lending plus value proposition? Beyond being an ordinary lender, we also give a bouquet of services, value-added services to our customers in terms of technology guidance, market assistance, raw material sourcing, GST facilitation, and others. A substantial number of young officers have been trained in project management in partnership with the Project Management Associates of Dr. Shivdhanu Pillai. We are also very strong in defense manufacturing facilitation. We have partnered with SIDM, CII, the Society for Indian Defense Manufacturers, for promoting defense
traditional OEMs, a lot of new electrical vehicle manufacturers, and then it slowly started cascading down to the supply chain. And we are seeing there are a lot of dynamics happening in the supply chain, and we thought it would be a good set to cover some of our observation on those dynamics and how the industry is evolving. When we say about benchmarking, there are two things that the whole industry and the supply base is focusing on. One is the technology optimization and then the cost optimization. So when we do benchmarking, all the customers eventually asking us to focus on these two elements. I think Mr. Mahesh Babu sir shared a lot of information on the data and how it is evolving. This is a very similar lines to that. We are talking about the global electrical vehicle market and its proliferation. What you see here, it's a projected vehicle on the road. In the queue of segments which will achieve the electrification faster, talking from the passenger vehicle, then comes the light commercial vehicle, then the bus, and the last will be the truck and the other industry. So we are seeing this is kind of how they are catching up in terms of the electrification race and the journey. So given that factor, the whole auto industry focuses on four things. I mean, everyone is aware that it's called the K strategy: connected, autonomous, shared, and electrification. Now we will just share some of the observations that we came across from our benchmarking activity through electrification. And we also see, though electrification is leading friend, all the other three strategies are just bagging along with that. So you cannot isolate one from the other. Things are happening in parallel and in tandem. That's kind of the observation what we see. In terms of electrification, when we take it back and see what is the key influences, right? Range, of course, range anxiety. There are a lot of discussions on that. For example, everyone wants to have a higher range, but when you talk about the commute, where you might be using your vehicle for a day, where you will be shuttling from point A to point B, you might not be needing a range of 500 kilometers or more. So there is a range anxiety, but off the late the industry is seeing range by itself is not a big factor.
The battery and electric drivetrain is growing at a 4x growth. The body parts and other parts are growing up as the industry is growing, and there is a substantial challenge on conventional IC components going forward. Let's look at component value proportion. You all know that India is a very complex multi-model mobility model. We have two-wheelers, we have three-wheelers, we have cars, and we are looking at buses and other commercial vehicles. The four major components going forward, I think substantially between 35 to 45% of the value is going to come from battery. Now, if it is going to be important component in EV, then are we doing enough on battery? Of course, we are doing some. You know, Government of India has announced a PLI scheme, which is very, very, what I would say, futuristic to kickstart this. But I believe a lot more has to be done, not just by the Government of India, but many in the industry as well. Just to give you a perspective, the need for battery packs in next 10 years in Europe is going to be 3,000 gigawatt hour. 3,000 gigawatt hour is the need if the European battery market or EV market has to be addressed. To my knowledge, about 1,000 to 1,500 gigawatt hour of battery manufacturing has already been announced in Europe. Where will the remaining come from? We need to think, Indian auto industry has to think that not just indigenization of components, but how do we play a role in a global supply chain. Look at motor and power electronics. It's going to play a very vital role, and we need to look at how do we transform the component industry oriented towards many of this. And each of these segment is not going to adapt the same way it is going to adapt. Let's go to the next slide, please. So look at Indian electric vehicle component. What is the potential by 2030? It's going to be close to 5 billion market. And is the 5 billion going to come from traditional? No. Even the new energy business is going to be huge. Batteries, electric motors, power electronics, charging stations. They are going to play a vital role in the growth going forward. And what are we doing with these industries will play a very vital role. Today, most of them, batteries, you all know that cell is still to be made in India. Motors, to some extent, has been localized, but a lot more has to be done. Power electronics, I strongly believe India has an edge, but we are still looking at East and West for technology tie-ups, not looking at own IPRs. We need to look at own IPRs and start working on this. And then charging station, to some extent, I believe that locally started manufacturing companies have come up. Next slide, please. Look at Indian electric vehicle industry. I'm not talking about projection, what has happened in the last 5 years. You can see two-wheeler have reached almost 230,000. Three-wheeler industry registered three-wheeler last month have crossed 50% in EV adoption. I still remember in November 2018 when we launched the first India's electric vehicle EV three-wheeler platform, we said by 2025 I see a 50% adoption. Everybody said it's not going to happen. May 2022, 50% registered three-wheelers in India is already electric vehicles. So the adoption is happening faster than we think. Four-wheelers, substantial growth, almost 17,000 vehicles have been registered. Buses, it's going to double this year and it's going to triple next year. Substantial amount of work is going on both by the government, industry, as well as on the application of STUs on buses. Let's look at, next slide please. Let's look at not just EV components, look at localization where we are today. The biggest value add component on battery cell, we are very, very low. To be frank, we don't have a cell manufacturing at all. And what is the potential by 2030, even after PLI, even after every industry announcing, we are still going to be low when compared to what Europe, China, US or any other country is going to be. That's why government is giving a PLI, but still it is not enough. Industry has to get in, otherwise we are going to just import cell instead of oil.
There's going to be a lot of data, there's going to be a lot of details that will be shared with you today, both in this session and in the sessions to come. But I will take a bit of a step back perspective and address a few topics that I think is very important for the country. Let me start with what would seem like an obvious statement. Even as the entire global auto industry is going through this evolution towards electrification and indeed the other elements of CASE that was talked about, let us remember that the trajectory in India will be and has to be different. India is a different market. We've repeatedly seen this in many, many domains, and it arises out of a combination of the kinds of customers we have, the kind of affordability we have, the kinds of cities that we have, the kind of population densities that we have. So, to start with, let us embrace the road to electrification that the world is on, but let us make sure that we carve a unique path that is relevant and beneficial for India. What do I mean by this? I mean, the whole world's talking about, Teslas and talking about Hyundai Konas and Volkswagen's talking about the ID3 platform. Let's face it, the biggest volume right now in India is two-wheelers. It's understandable. That's where
Mahesh Babu, Ravichandran, Pradeep Kumar, Kannan, distinguished delegates and dear friends. As speakers mentioned before me, having this hall full is a matter of great pleasure. It's a sign of a vibrant, progressive and developing Tamil Nadu, a very confident Tamil Nadu. Friends, in the context of today's meet, the vision of the Honorable Chief Minister to make Tamil Nadu economy a 1 trillion economy by 2030 is very relevant. For all the constituents of the government of Tamil Nadu, particularly the industries department, this vision is the guiding principle. Few of the key takeaways I'd like to highlight today. Speakers mentioned about ecosystem game, ecosystem value proposition. Dr. Sumantran mentioned about a very value relevant saying, it takes a village to raise a child. In the context of EV, Tamil Nadu is blessed with a head start and a very vibrant ecosystem. The Shriperumbudur cluster is the cluster for electronics hardware. It's also the cluster for automotive manufacturing. Plus, we have a new emerging cluster, Hosur, Krishnagiri, Dharmapuri region, where we have players like Ola, Ather, Simple Energy, anchored their investments and their future plans there. Your electronics hardware manufacturing capability, ecosystem, and the talent pool of reputed engineering institutes and the graduates. it is an unbeatable combination. Friends, as India takes a journey to its logical destination or destiny to be an EV superpower, this journey of Indian nation will be powered by Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu's economy is the growth engine of Indian economy.
There's going to be a lot of data, there's going to be a lot of details that will be shared with you today, both in this session and in the sessions to come. But I will take a bit of a step back perspective and address a few topics that I think is very important for the country. Let me start with what would seem like an obvious statement. Even as the entire global auto industry is going through this evolution towards electrification and indeed the other elements of case that was talked about, let us remember that the trajectory in India will be and has to be different. India is a different market. We've repeatedly seen this in many, many domains, and it arises out of a combination of the kinds of customers we have, the kind of affordability we have, the kinds of cities that we have, the kind of population densities that we have. So, to start with, let us embrace the road to electrification that the world is on, but let us make sure that we carve a unique path that is relevant and beneficial for India. What do I mean by this? I mean, the whole world's talking about, Teslas and talking about Hyundai Konas and Volkswagen's talking about the ID3 platform. Let's face it, the biggest volume right now in India is two-wheelers. It's understandable. That's where
on dais, Hansraj Vermaji, Pradeep Kumar, Mahesh Babu, V. Sumantranji, Mr. Kannan, dignitaries from the government, from my TDB team sitting here, friends from